Howdy everyone, it's me once again, the one and only Killer Dan. And today, I'm going to be reviewing another kaiju film, giant monster feature, creature feature, whatever you want to call it. I'm reviewing another one. So, I did review the Blu-ray version of the Japanese edition of this film, so I figured I would review the American version. So, the price for this one, of course, it's going to vary depending where you go, but the general price for it to be somewhere between roughly $12 to roughly $20. So that's a bit more durable compared to some other Godzilla films I've reviewed in the past. So the title for this version is Godzilla 2000. So I figured I would, review this version. Yeah, the American edited version of this film, which of course I honestly didn't care much for really. And yeah, there's some clear differences from the Japanese version and the obviously American edited version, of course. Either scenes were removed entirely or just altered just to shorten them, and that was usually the case. A lot of scenes were shortened, and of course, a lot of lines were, of course, altered as well. Which doesn't make a whole lot of sense in my eyes because, well, I'll get to that in a minute. Of course, as usual, I do have to talk about the plot. So let's begin, shall we? So, I mean, as far as story is concerned, it's basically the same thing as it was in the Japanese version. So basically, the story centers around the fact that there's this alien thing that wants to come over and do its thing. That's still intact. Yes, there's still the female reporter, of course, and she still has her companions, obviously, that little girl and that one dude. And like in the Japanese version I mentioned, there's still that asshole bad guy, human villain, Katagiri. He's still here, he's still a thing in this version. He's still a dickhead. And yeah. So the overall story remained the same, really. But of course, there was gonna be some conflicts between the human characters, which realistically does make sense because not everyone's gonna agree on everything. So, and of course, the big alien thing I spoke about in the Japanese version is still in here. So, the vast majority of the overall story is still intact. But what I have an issue with is the way they handle it is I have a problem with in this movie. And this film does have it feels like it has a different tone. And that seems to be the usual problem I have with the American edited versions. The tone is different from the Japanese version. This one comes off a lot more lighthearted, a lot more goofy, and this Venom has some of the terrible voice acting. I know these films became known for having terrible voice acting, and this one doesn't help. The voice acting isn't particularly good, really, and also, yeah, the whole bit with the dialogue was saying a moment ago, and basically the vast majority of the dialogue hasn't been changed because uh there's one scene in the Japanese version where the UFO thing hovers over this building that the female reporter walks in. She walks in as like headquarters reporting kind of a thing, and she does drop her what she found, which whatever. Whenever she discovers something, whenever she has something to report, she goes down and just drops it off, whatever that may be, to work on an article, whatever. And there's one scene where that UFO thing hovers over it briefly. In the Japanese version, they said Jesus Christ as a swear word, but in the American version, they know that a lot of Americans would get offended by having a character saying, "Oh, Jesus Christ," as a swear word, which is pretty stupid if you're actually. So that lines like that were removed, and that line of dialogue was replaced by "Great Caesar's ghost." That's that's stupid. That makes it sound way more goofy than it originally intended. So anything with like maybe in words like Jesus, God damn it. Yes, even the word God damn it will be removed like gosh darn or whatever. Or what the heck. Or instead of saying what the hell. Stuff like that. Lines of dialogue would be removed just because it would offend the American Christians, and the people behind the American film knew that a lot of the American Christians may want to see this. I'm going to tell you on how ridiculous this entire thing is. You mean to tell me you're going to allow this group of people in America to dictate on how to make this film available to American theaters so it won't be offensive to anybody? It comes off like a dictatorship. You can't do that, you can't do that, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do that, can't do that, can't do this, can't do that, can't do that, can't not this, not that. So, you mean to tell me you're going to try to censor a film that came from a different country where the minority are Christians? Christians do exist in Japan, yes, but just in a small number of them. But in America, it's the vast majority who are Christians. And the non-believers are the minority. See, it flipped there. So they're going to dictate what a foreign film, what they can and can't do. But homophobic morons like this still roam around.
Fifth Avenue North. On yesterday, we had a historical thing to happen in the city of Birmingham. They call it historical, made history and all that kind of stuff. But I'm here this morning to talk about another his story. To me, yesterday was one of the most bizarre scenes I ever seen in this city. One of the most comedic scenes I ever witnessed in public. When I witnessed men with size 13, 14 shoes out there kissing each other in the mouth in front of little kids. It was just bizarre. It was like a freak scene going on. That's what I call it. Now, I know about the government and laws being made, but I got a law this morning that came out of Ephesians chapter 5 and verse 31. And it says, shall a man leave his mother and father and join to his wife, and they shall become one. And to have your kids out there yesterday, 6, 7 years old, holding flags, the Bible said, provoke not your children to riot.
Yes, Leviticus 20:13 calls for the death penalty for homosexuals. Yes, Romans chapter 1 verse 32, the Apostle Paul does say that homosexuals are worthy of death. His words, not mine. And I am not ashamed of the gospel of Jesus Christ. And I am not ashamed of the truth of the Word of God. And I am willing to go to jail for standing on the truth of the Word of God. And I know I've taken the counsel. Many have told me this weekend, you be careful. You choose your words carefully. We have presidentials coming down to this conference this weekend. I understand that. But I am not ashamed of the truth of the Word of God. And I'm willing to go to jail for it.
As mentioned a moment ago, the vast majority of Americans are Christians, and they know many of these individuals will in fact go to the movie theaters and watch these types of movies. So anything that would offend them will be removed, of course. Anything that would be insulting will be immediately removed. And their numbers are in decline, folks, of course, over the years. And funny that they claim to be all loving and loving, even though the vast majority of them would reject when they're children if they're goth or if they just feel a different way. And yes, I could tell you stories about how many Christians that claim to be loving and open-minded, but when it comes to the whole goth culture, they seem to be automatically resenting these kinds of individuals. So, yeah, going to drill too much into this, folks. I'm just bringing it up just to bring a point, really. But when it comes to Christians, the vast majority of them, not all of them, there are quite a few Christians who are tend to be more lenient than compared to some others, but those are more, uh, let's say, are more few in between. Sadly to say, but anyway, a lot of them tend to be more conservative than liberal. Conservative is a term for when it comes to being political and the social norm, where they will promote the traditional social idea in the context of culture and the whole idea of what civilization should be. So this central idea, of course, comes into how property should work, who really should be in authority and whatnot, and of course, a lot of conservatives do seek to preserve the right range of rights such as religion, government, property rights, and within the social stability of continuing their practicing. So they felt that anybody who's goth or maybe gay might be a threat to that. To be perfectly clear, folks, you could be a goth person and also believe in capitalism. Also, you don't necessarily need to be Christian and believe in the right of making a lot of money. You don't necessarily need to be a part of a church, or if any at all, to be more frank. So basically, what I'm getting at is that these Christians, the close-minded Christians anyway, are contradicting the whole concept of capitalism. If someone's going to be making a movie, it should be a Christian. If anybody's going to make and write a book, it should be a Christian. If anybody's going to show theaters any kind of movies, it should be a Christian. If anyone's going to make a book or maybe write a story or write dialogue for a film, it should be a Christian. See what I mean? That's what I'm talking about. So rather than just voting with your daughter, they just want to beat you into their way. Thing that might be offensive towards the viewer, even though not everything in the entire world is about them. So give me a damn break here. Well, anyway, I guess another thing I want to bring up the film is that the dialogue in this film. Yeah, the dialogue is pretty bad. The dialogue is pretty awful in this film, folks. The dialogue in this film is up to the point where it's it comes off it was intentionally cheesy. And yeah, it doesn't quite match up to the Japanese script dialogue how it was in the Japanese version. So yeah, it just comes off like a parody, if anything. And yes, don't get me wrong, I'm fully aware that there's plenty of good parody movies. And parody movies can actually be good if done right. There's plenty of them. And those are really genuinely good. But my issue is that this movie was not intended to be a parody film. It was meant to be more serious than this. Yes, the Japanese version did have some humor moments, but that was supposed to have a way to. In other words, I'm saying the Japanese version did have some humor scenes, but it was to release some of the stressful situations to lighten the moment. This one didn't do that really. It was just bad dialogue just for the sake of having bad dialogue, which just ruined some of the suspense on what they were trying to do, especially towards the end of the film. And those the whole human drama of this film, it's ruined because of the god awful dialogue. Because, like I was saying, it just came out like that shitty dialogue was done on purpose. Sure, the plot line for the Japanese version wasn't all that special, really. Of course, Godzilla 2000 was intended to be taking Godzilla back to the basics, back to the roots in a sense. Of course, the Godzilla's gonna be in here, who's of course gonna be a threat to society and the world over. And yes, of course, there's gonna be a kaiju who may or may not be stronger, and of course has to basically destroy this other monster. While humanity itself has to get comfortable with Godzilla somehow because he's always gonna be around no matter what. And of course, trying to mix into story that the human beings are trying to stop Godzilla and others trying to destroy him. So yeah, it kind of have a sort of formula told it, of course. And yes, of course, the fact that there's an alien involved here, of course. The alien itself wants to basically kill Godzilla off. So yeah, the alien is from a distant place, from a distant planet, of course. So it does have the basic story of a Godzilla film in here, sure, like the Japanese version. But the dialogue, oh boy, like I was saying, the dialogue, I can't get over the fact that it has some of the cheesiest, some of the worst dialogue ever written for a movie. And I really didn't like that. I really didn't like that at all, folks. So I know some people might try to justify it that a lot of these foreign films may have a lot of bad dialogue anyway. I know some people out there were just trying to dismiss this movie that, oh, it's a foreign film. Of course the dialogue would be bad. And that's really dumb if you ask me. I know the kung fu movies that I'm often reviewing do have the same problem. A lot of people are trying to dismiss the fact that these films are from a different country, so of course the dialogue is going to be really shitty in English. So let's just leave it alone. Let's not even bother trying to correct the lines or anything, and just leave it bad on there. Which, like I just said, is absurdly stupid. Just because it's from a different country doesn't mean the dialogue itself has to be bad. So it just came off that they weren't even trying. So of course, if the dialogue, one of the most basic things in filmmaking, is bad, the entire film is gonna fall apart. And even if you can bypass that somehow, yes, there's still the good designs of the monsters, like the monster alien creature thing, Oregon. But that's only because I've seen it in the Japanese version. So I'm still gonna pick the Japanese version more, of course. Yes, I'll admit, of course, the since a lot of stuff was edited out completely, or at the very least, some of it was actually shortened, so the pacing is actually faster. So I guess, in other words, that's more of a cultural thing, really. While a lot of Japanese films may be a lot more slower compared to the American films, so that may be a cultural thing right there. A lot of the American films, regardless of genre, tend to be more fast paced, while the Japanese films, most of the time, tend to be a bit more slower. So, in the Japanese version, you get to feel like that you get more of a feel for the character, you get more of a feel of the monsters and the drama, whereas in the American edited version, it just gets straight to the point. While that might be okay with some people, and I'll be okay with it depending on what the movie is. But for me, I didn't like the fact that it was more fast paced, so to some degree, it did bug me the wrong way. So there was that. So it is a lot more faster compared to the Japanese version, where it's a bit more slower. So yeah, there was that, folks. Just want to point out a few things here, folks. Of course. And another thing, this Japanese version is a lot more darker, but the American version is a lot more lighthearted, like for kids. Yeah, I mean, give me a break here. There's already a lot of stuff for kids out there. There's lots of books they can read or whatever. Don't you think they don't have enough? The book market, when you think about it, it's already saturated with lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of books. I mean, holy hell, there's a lot of books for kids. So you think this would be enough? You think this is enough for them? Why does everything else have to be aimed for kids? So that really bugs me there too. Let's make it more lighthearted. Let's make the characters live in a bubble. Or at the very least, let's not make it too threatening. Let's not make it too scary. Let's just dump down the violence. So the more violent moments in this film were dumbed down. Let's water it down just for the kids. Yep, let's just do that, folks. Just because of the fact that, hey, look, it's little Jim and his pals. They're gonna watch this movie, even though they're not really gonna be paying attention, really. And they have the intention of a fly. So they're not going to be paying attention to what's going on. They're not going to understand the more complex issues of the story when it comes to politics and whatnot. And the Godzilla films are known for having politics. So there's that. So anyway, another thing I would definitely point out is that when it comes to the music is vastly different. And I mean, the American version does borrow some of the music from the Japanese version, sure, but the American version does have some of its own music. And yes, I have to admit, some of the music in this version is actually quite good. So there's no argument from there. The music in some of the music in the American version is actually really really good, especially during the final battle. So yeah, I really like it's really dramatic. It can be really scary at times, which I find kind of odd. So now certainly the movie's gonna take itself seriously, and the very last uh, battle, the tone is off. The tone of this movie is really unbalanced, is what I'm trying to get at you folks. That just comes off as really bizarre in my eyes. So that alone bothered me too, of course. So it just comes off rather weird. So yeah, I didn't like a lot of the aspects of this version, folks. I didn't like the motivation as to why they want to change a lot of it. Really, I mean, okay, yes, I know the Japanese version was no masterpiece either. Sure, but if I'm gonna pick between the two, in my brutal, humble opinion, I'm gonna stay with the Japanese version. Um, I mean, this wasn't the worst thing I've seen, but I wouldn't say it was very good either. I know I'm pretty much complaining about the entire thing. I know, but this was not exactly the worst thing I've seen. Sure, but I wouldn't say it was very good. Not really. Not really. It's still not very good. It's okay. Yes, it's all right. This version of this film it's okay. It plays it safe. Really, it plays it safe. If you've seen some of the other Godzilla films, you should know how it's gonna play out. It doesn't do anything new, really. And yeah, I wish a lot of people could have seen the Japanese version instead, because the Japanese version, like I said, in my honest opinion, is a lot better than this. I know a lot of people had seen both versions. A lot of people have said, hey, had seen they had seen the Japanese version and the American version, and some people out there had said that the the American version was better than the Japanese one, but I'm gonna have to disagree because I like the Japanese version better because that was the way it was supposed to. That was the intention. I mean, yes, in this version, the American version, like I was saying, yes, it is faster pacing. The music, um, in some areas was better, and the sound effects are louder. Yes, some of the sound effects are actually better, but in the grand scheme of things, I like them. I still like the Japanese version better. And yeah, I'm just gonna be honest here, folks. That's all. This version was okay. It's just okay. I thought it was alright. Really, I mean, would I watch it again? Most likely not. And if I am gonna watch it again, it's gonna be the Japanese version, obviously. So, and yeah, I would say that. I guess I guess my final saying is that I watched it because I just want to compare it, of course. And overall, it was extremely disappointing. But then again, I wasn't expecting all that much because when it comes to Godzilla films or even anime, like Sailor Moon, Dragon Ball, all this, or Yu-Gi-Oh, um, all this anime type stuff. I know they tend to change a lot of stuff, and yeah. because it might be too violent. I know Dragon Ball Z got really censored because of the violence, which is bullshit. And I know Sailor Moon was censored because lesbianism. Enough said. Which of course is really homophobic if you ask me, but whatever. And what's kind of find kind of odd, like the whole Christian bit I was saying earlier. Just because there's a lot of Christians in this country does not mean everyone else in the world is going to share the same kind of values that you do. So what the hell? So you can't just be going around dictating what can and can't be shown in the media. And of course, Sailor Moon was watered down for kids. Dragon Ball was watered down for kids, and a lot of the lot of the other anime stuff, even uh Pokemon too was censored because of certain themes. A lot of Christians thought Pokemon was teaching revolution because somehow displaying the fact that human beings evolved from other things is somehow against Christianity, which sounds absurd. I don't know what that has to do with Pokemon, but okay. But because the Pokemon can evolve, is that what it is? That has nothing to do with human evolution. Okay, I'm getting off topic here, but point being, they're trying to use different point of views as a way to censor this movie, which is wrong. But anyway, I'm just rambling on. I know, but anyway, I didn't like this. I made my point already. I did not like this version very much. I really, really didn't. Uh, I know a lot of people, like I was saying, I know a lot of people said they enjoy this version, but the way I took it is usually because of nostalgia. A lot of people seen this film in the movie theaters when they were like in their teenagers and when they were in high school or whatever, and they have fond memories when they watched it with some friends, and maybe they watched it at home. This film was actually available on for Blockbuster home video. If anybody remembers what Blockbuster was, that is. Or the other one is Hollywood Video. Hollywood Videos was around for a while. Those two, oh yeah, Hollywood Video and Blockbuster Video had the American version in their shops. And a lot of people, again in their teens or whatnot, had would go there, rent this movie out, and watch it. Then you can watch it with their family, their friends, or whatever, and they all just by themselves. You have some popcorn, candy, soda, whatever, and just watch it. Then they just have these fond memories of back then, and somehow that's good enough to make this film enjoyable. Yeah, come on, give me a break, really. That's just a nostalgia speaking there. Anyway, so yeah, like I said, I didn't like it. I didn't like this very much. No, not not really, not really. So a lot of the good compliments, like I said, yeah, I said something about the music. I said something about the sound effects. So those were really good in this version. Sure, I'll give it that. And well, as for everything else, all the good compliments I can give this film is mostly just because of the Japanese version. Really, it can be applied for that one. So anyway, I'll give the American version of this film an overall rating of a 5.1 out of 10. It gets a 5.1 out of 10 because it's adequate. As always, thanks for watching and take care. Until next time, see ya. Oh yeah.